something I think that gets in the way of success and has been a huge unlock for me is it's not, but your fear of criticism. If you're going to be successful, you're going to face criticism. Starting a business is subjecting yourself to public failure. I want to go back to something you said about approaching women and guys being afraid to be that guy. I think some of that is a little bit exaggerated. And that most women, if you are respectful, the vast majority of women, if you're respectful and approach a woman at a bar, hi, how are you? And she's not interested, you're going to be fine, and you're both going to be fine. And just as I think there's two myths that are damaging to the mating market, which is really upsetting to me. One, that men think that all women are looking to, or a lot of women are looking to embarrass them and they might get canceled professionally. If you're respectful to a woman and approach her and make her feel safe, and then if she's not interested, politely exit, you're going to be fine, and so is she. And I don't buy that you're taking your career in your hands. I think that's just bullshit and an excuse to be an incel. I just don't buy it. And two, what really has been an enormous unlock for me is I believe in my atheism. I believe at some point I'm going to look into my kids' eyes and know our relationship is coming to an end. I was fucking their age. You got a bunch of young dudes in here who look like former Abercrombie and Fitch models. I remember they look like they're 25. They're probably 35. It was yesterday I was their age, which means just in an instant, I'm going to be, again, at that moment where I know I don't have much time left. And in 100 years, no one's going to give a shit what I said or thought or did or the mistakes I made. And embracing that and accepting that has given me so much courage, right? To start businesses, to make dumb investments that might be crazy, to tell men in my life finally that I love them or I'm impressed with them. When I was their age, I had this weird sense of masculinity that if I said, oh, dude, look how handsome this dude is, that it took away from my prestige somehow, that I couldn't tell people they were impressive. I couldn't tell a woman, God, I'm just crazy about you. And I would give anything to spend more time with you because I was worried that she wouldn't return my affection and I would be just too hurt and I had to be cool and like not need her or not. All this bullshit that got in the way of me really having a good life. And what I realized is every failure I've had, people go, oh, his business went bankrupt. Okay. And then they go back to thinking about themselves. So everyone you're worried about really doesn't give a shit about you. And by the way, the dude that's not very good looking and is with a ridiculously like high character, hot woman is one of two things, has rich parents, or two, is willing to endure rejection. So I just don't buy, that myth of the man risking his personal and professional reputation, I don't think that's true. On the other side, the myth I hate, I don't know if you've seen this. On TikTok, a lot of women are saying, I don't date because the risks of being unalived, which I guess is the woke version of saying murdered.
I think it's because on social media platforms, if you say murder or suicide,
it goes ranked down?
I don't know if it actually does, but it's this idea that, that it's going to be ranked down.
Here's the data. Okay, if 2,500 women a year are murdered by men. That's way too many. It's a huge problem. Sexual assault is a bigger problem. The majority of women who are murdered by someone they know. So the reality is a small number of women are murdered on dates with strangers. It just doesn't happen that often. And 40,000 men a year kill themselves. So if you go on a date with a man, the man is 16 times more likely to go home and hurt himself than hurt you. So what I would say to men is make the approach, take the risk, and as long as you're respectful, you're going to be fine, and so is she, and you are not taking your professional or personal reputation into your hands. And what I would say to women is if you go on a date with a guy that you met on an app, there's all sorts of digital breadcrumbs, and it's a lot, you are, and I can statistically prove this, the ride over in Uber, the Uber was a lot more dangerous than the date itself, and you are more likely to die of choking during dinner than to be hurt by that man. So what I hate is that there's all this inflammatory content being boosted on online media that's getting in the way of the most rewarding thing in life. And that is to find someone who you are physically attracted to, who you sync up with spiritually, and you decide to build a life together. And not enough of that is happening. We're in a sex recession, right? And online is making it worse. The dating apps have an incentive in you finding a bigger, better deal. And the genders have done an amazing job of convincing each other it's the other's fault. And I think one of the big foci that need to be really pay more attention to is what I call renewal of alliances. I'd love to see a renewal of alliances between us and our great allies in Europe. Renewal of allies who are moderates. I know nothing about you. I just can't believe you're an extremist on the left or the right. I just don't.
Bullseye.
There needs to be a renewal of alliances between what I'll call moderate lefties like me and moderate conservatives that are everywhere. We're all Americans, but the most important alliance that needs renewal is the greatest alliance in history, hands down, and it's the alliance between men and women. The integration of female and male energy, the ability to find someone you want to procreate with, to build something together, that is the most rewarding thing in life, and I can prove it's key to the species' progress and existence. And men and women have been taught not to trust each other and to blame each other. I hate the fucking manosphere, and I hate quite frankly, some of the reactionary notion on the left where it's misandry cosplaying as social commentary. There's a lot of bullshit misandry online where you're assuming every young man is a predator, and quite frankly, that every billionaire is evil or that every white person is racist. But the alliance between men and women needs to be reformed. It's the greatest alliance in history. And online, it's teaching men to blame women for their problems. No, women's ascent saved our ass. Women in the factory in World War II is the reason we won the war in 4 years, not in 7. Women going into the workforce in the 70s and 80s and protections of their rights for fair pay is the reason we're not a second-tier power to China right now. If women hadn't ascended, we'd be really squarely and duly fucked, right? And their ascent is in no way inversely correlated or correlated to men's descent. Men have to stop that bullshit. An immigrant didn't take your job. He made it such that you could have lower rent, a meal for a reasonable price, and have someone take care of your mother when she's older. And at the same time, if you're having romantic problems, it's not her fault. Women are ascending, and naturally, they have higher standards because they're no longer economically dependent upon men, which should be a motivator for men to level up, not to start blaming women. And all this shit is being totally inflamed and taken totally out of proportion by online because it creates more attention, it's interesting, it's novel, and it creates more Nissan ads. But I'm trying to figure out what is the economic incentive to try and figure out a way to get more men and women appreciating the other gender beyond just the basics, right? How do we renew that alliance?